There is an initial increase of heart rate prior to exercise due to the adrenaline being released from the pituitary gland and enters the bloodstream, increasing the force and speed of stimulation of the SA node. This could be due to emotional stimulation or from the hypothalamus. There needs to be a rapid increase in heart rate to allow blood flow and to allow oxygen delivery. Just as exercise intensity increases, heart rate begins to level out and eventually stops rising because oxygen supply meets the demands of the intensity. This is because neural control mechanisms such as baroreceptors, which detects an increased stretch in ventricle walls, chemoreceptors detects an increase in CO2 levels and lactic acid, proprioceptors detect an increase in movement and forming the cardiac control center in the medulla oblongata. This initiates the ANS that stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, releasing adrenaline and noradrenaline to increase heart rate via the accelerator nerve. Once exercise is stopped, there may be a minor continuation of level of heart rate to help with oxygen depth and waste removal from the working muscles. But will gradually begin to decrease as large amounts of nutrients and oxygen is not needed by the working muscles because exercise is stopped. To decrease the heart rate, chemo, paro, and propio detect and send the info to the CC, which inhabits the parasympathetic nervous system via the vagus nerve to lower the heart rate back to resting, and is actioned by the autonomic nervous system. Stroke volume. According to Honeyborn, stroke volume is the volume of blood ejected by the left ventricle per beat. It increases in proportion to exercise until it plateaus at 40 to 60% and is approximately 70 milliliters in untrained performers and 100 milliliters in trained performers. This is because trained performers have greater hypertrophy of the heart and therefore has a greater stretch from the ventricular walls. Because the untrained performer has no adaptations of the heart, less blood is able to flow into the left ventricle, reducing the stroke volume. Some factors that affect stroke volume is the change in venous return when exercising muscle pumps. When exercising, muscle pumps are used to guide the blood back to the heart more quickly to aid venous return. This is essentially contractions in the veins that help with venous return and ultimately increase stroke volume. Others are gravity, from above, from the head to the heart, redirects blood, and pocket valves help direct blood in the veins to the heart, increasing stroke volume. In relation to steady state exercise, stroke volume should increase to about 115 milliliters for an untrained performer, and for a trained athlete up to 200 milliliters of blood ejected per beat, as they have a lower heart rate and ultimately a more efficient heart, as it is under less stress when exercising. 40 to 60% corresponds with submaximal intensity, where stroke volume should plateau, according to normative data. Increase venous return, increase stroke volume because of the increased blood flow back to the heart, and therefore more blood filling the ventricles per beat. Starling's law is the relationship between venous return and stroke volume. According to Honeyborn and Powell, increased venous return leads to an increased stroke volume due to an increased stretch in the ventricle walls, and therefore a greater force of contraction, suggesting that an increased amount of blood returning to the heart will have an increase in end diastolic volume whilst creating a greater stretch from the ventricular walls and therefore a greater force of contraction. Although as exercise intensity increases, so does the heart rate and stroke volume will plateau in line with venous return to the ventricle cannot completely fill blood in time for the heart rate, and systolic volume, which is the amount of blood left after this systole phase, contraction phase, increases. In relation to steady state exercise, the amount of blood in the recovery phase, stroke volume should maintain its amount ejected as the heart rate decreases. To help with waste removal from muscles. Cardiac output is the total volume of blood ejected by the left ventricle per minute and is calculated by multiplying heart rate and stroke volume together. Basically is the total amount of blood ejected by the heart every minute. The norm for cardiac output is 5 litres a minute for both untrained and trained performers, because although heart rate increases, stroke volume increases, so cardiac levels balance out. Like stroke volume, it increases with intensity but plateaus, but not as steady state exercise. Cardiac output plateaus at maximal intensities when you reach your max heart rate, which is heart rate minus H. During steady state exercise, the values for untrained performer are between 10 and 15 litres a minute, for an untrained athlete 15, and for a trained athlete 15 to 20 litres a minute. For a professional athlete like Mo Farah, he reaches bradycardia and his heart rate is 33 beats per minute. With a trained athlete's stroke volume at 200 during steady state exercise and him working at 60% intensity, where stroke volume plateaus, his cardiac would be higher than the average athlete because his heart is much more efficient in the way it utilizes the EDV and lowering the heart rate to get a greater contraction force and therefore more efficient. Although cardiac output does not decrease with age, it does decrease with age, as the ventricle walls become less elastic, reducing the stroke volume and overall reducing cardiac output. Blood pressure. When the ventricles contract, it pushes blood through into the aorta and then to the rest of the body's blood vessels, which creates blood pressure. A blood pressure reading from a cuff has two values. The systolic value, whereby the blood pressure is the heart is the breathing where the heart is squeezing, and diastolic value when the heart is relaxing. The average blood pressure for an adult is 120 over 80 milligrams of mercury. The first number is the systolic value, and the second number is the diastolic value. Blood pressure is determined by cardiac output and the resistance to blood flow. Resistance to blood flow is caused by the diameter of the blood vessels and by the viscosity of the blood. Furthermore, atherosclerosis increases their resistance to blood flow and will increase blood pressure. So will but this will cause serious health implications, such as causing chronic high blood pressure or even a heart attack or stroke due to blockage of the arterioles. A steady state exercise will cause an increase in blood pressure, but is usual as the force of contraction needs to be harder due to the demand for oxygen and nutrients to the working muscles, but this will plateau along with stroke volume and cardiac when it reaches its optimum level. According to a website links in my PowerPoint, systolic blood pressure increases significantly and proportionally to workload increase during exercise test in healthy adults. Trained athletes have higher levels of blood pressure because they have greater hypertrophic adaptation, like a thicker wall on the left side of the heart. Redistribution of the blood around the body is controlled by the vascular shunt mechanism. It is the important mechanism in order to redistribute cardiac output around the body from rest to exercise, which increases the amount of blood flow according to Honeyborn power. Capillary beds lay intertwined in the muscles, and these capillaries are where oxygen replaces CO2, the waste product, which is the waste product of aerobic respiration. Blood flow is controlled by precapillary sphincters that contract or relax depending on whether to vasoconstrict, make the arterioles smaller, or vasodilate to make the diameter of the arterioles bigger and increase blood flow to the muscle or organs. At rest, around 80% of blood flow is directed to the organs like the digestive system, and the other 20% is sent to the working muscles. However, during steady-state exercise, these roles switch. Around 80% of blood is redistributed via the arterioles and precapillary sphincters, so capillary beds to the muscle. The arterioles vasodilate to allow as much blood to flow through to the working muscles and arterioles to the organs. Vasoconstrict because oxygen demand there is less compared to the working muscles, maximizing gaseous exchange and blood flow. This process is all controlled by the vasomotor control center, and during steady-state exercise, chemoreceptors detect an increase in CO2 levels and baroreceptors detect an increase in blood pressure on the arterial walls. This info is sent to the vasomotor control center, located in the medulla oblongata, and this stimulates the sympathetic nervous system to vasodilate the arterioles and then the precapillary sphincters to maximize the blood flow to the muscles for gas exchange, and the arterioles and PCS are constricted to the organs to provide the most effective distribution of blood around the body during steady-state exercise. Breathing rate is the number of times you inspire or expire each minute. An untrained performer is likely to take approximately 12 to 15 breaths a minute, whereas a trained likely to be 11 to 12 breaths a minute. Breathing rate has a positive correlation with intensity. During steady-state exercise, we expect the performer not to go above 40 breaths a minute for an untrained performer. The reason why breathing rate increases with intensity is because the muscles are demanding more oxygen to prevent build-up of lactic acid. During steady-state exercise, O2 consumption increases gradually. To increase breathing rate in order to support the muscle, sensory neurons like chemoreceptors detects an increase in CO2, and proprioceptors detects an increase in movement, and this information is sent to the RCC, as well as neural stimulants like thermoreceptors that detect an increase in temperature within the body. Within the RCC, there are two other centers that help breathing rate. These neural stimuli inform the instability center and stimulate the contraction of the sternocleidomastoid in the pectoral minor to force the ribcage up and out faster and harder to improve inspiration.